Question 56 relates to, again, a change in the structure of a group and asks us to calculate what the adjustment that would be made to consolidated reserves is as a result of a acquisition of additional shares. So if we read through the scenario, it tells us that AB acquired 70% of the ordinary share capital of CD back on the 1st of January X2. It then purchased a further 10% on the 1st of January X3. It tells us that in the consolidated statement of financial position for this group at 31st of December X2, NCI was shown with a balance of 3.03 million. So the difference here is that before we acquire this additional 10%, the NCI represents a 30% holding. Once we purchase an additional 10%, what we're effectively doing is taking that 10% from the NCI and leaving just a 20% non-controlling interest. So if a 30% NCI has a value of 3.03 million, the 10% that we need to take out of NCI and move into group reserves could be calculated by taking 10 over 30 times that 3030, which would give us a figure of 1010. So in the consolidated SFP, the NCI would drop by that figure and we would physically move that across into group reserves. However, the other side of that is that the group has paid this amount of 1172 for the additional shares, so that the net effect on the consolidated reserves is actually just 162. So we can see that one of the first two answers is the correct one for us to work out. What we now need to do is think about whether that would be a debit or a credit entry. With any debit credit style questions, I always tend to come back to, can I deal with anything through my bank? Because debits and credits on your bank tend to be easier to follow. So when the payment is made, that would be a credit entry to our bank account. We would need to debit somewhere, and we've just seen that that would be here. We would debit reserves with the 1172. When we take this 1010 out of our non-controlling interest, most of our reserves normally sit as credit balances. So what we'd be doing with this one is debiting our non-controlling interest to reduce it and crediting this reserves account here. So the net effect, the 162, would end up being a debit to the consolidated reserves, giving us this first option as the correct answer.